Hello, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're located. So happy you're here and able to spend time with us today. This is the Cricut Actions in Design Space class, where we will do a deep dive into the layers panel of Design Space and the actions that are found in the layers panel. So super happy you're here. I have some helpers on the back end. Say hello to Joy and Lindsay. They are monitoring our Q&A. So if you have any questions along the class, please drop that in the Q&A and we'll be able to answer you right there. Some questions will get sent right over to me so that I can answer them live. This class is being recorded, so if for any reason you drop out or you just are watching along today, you'll be able to go back, watch the class, and pause it as you go along to make the project. It takes about 48 hours and it'll be on the Michael's YouTube channel. So keep that in mind. There's also closed captioning on, and if you want to turn that off, just in the bottom right of your Zoom window, click closed captions off. The way the class will set up today is we will do a slide presentation of Design Space. And this gives us an opportunity to walk through Design Space and point out the actions and the layers panel and kind of go the next step in Design Space. This is a great spot for you to have a notebook, write down information, jot down any questions you have along the way. And then we're going to go into Design Space live and we'll go through a project all the way from a blank canvas to a completed project. So if you do plan on working along with me, you might want to go ahead and start up Design Space in the background. Just make sure it doesn't need any updates or anything like that. So again, my name is Kesley. I am your instructor today. I have Joy and Lindsay on the back side. This is being recorded, so you'll be able to watch it. And let's just go ahead and get started. I'll share my screen with you so that you can see that broad overview of Design Space. Now, Cricut Design Space works with all the different machines and no matter which type of device you're working on. So if you're working on a desktop, a laptop, your phone, or a tablet device, it doesn't matter. It all works with Design Space. It is a little bit different, and for this class, it will make a little bit difference. I use a desktop in the class. If you're on a tablet or phone device, just keep in mind that all the icons that we talk about are located along the bottom of your screen. So a tablet or a phone device doesn't have as big a screen as a laptop or a desktop. So we hide some of the features down below. They're still there, they're just a little bit hidden. So we'll point those out as we go along. So the first one we're going to talk about is the layers panel. So go ahead, if you're on a tablet, find the layers icon in the bottom and click on that. Now, keep in mind, let me just take one step back. Keep in mind that when you open up Design Space on a tablet device or a phone device, you go into the canvas automatically. When you open Design Space on a desktop or a laptop, you go into the home screen. So right here on your tablet device is the toggle between the home and the canvas. So today we're going to start off on the canvas. Okay, so this is the canvas on a desktop. On the right-hand side here, you see the layers panel. The layers panel is basically where all the action happens, where everything takes place. So as you build up on the canvas with shapes or text or images, you'll notice in the layers panel that they start to show up in little icons and steps in the layers panel here. Now, also take note, some things are grayed out and some things are not. When something is grayed out, it just means that you can't use it on the layer or layers that you have selected. And this will be a recurring theme so that you get familiar with what you can do on different layers and layer. So when you add your layer in here, like I've added my square, as I keep adding layers onto the canvas, they stack one on top of each other in the layers panel. So first I had my square, and then I added a circle and a triangle. The circle came in on top of the square, and then the triangle came on top of the circle and the square. So they layer like a 7-layer dip. If you ever make that, you put your refried beans on the bottom, and then you add your layers till you get to your cheese. So that's how the layers panel works. Now, in the layers panel, we do have a feature to turn off a layer or to keep a layer active. By turning off a layer, you just click on the eye in the layer itself. And when you have clicked on the eye and it has that slash through it, that means that you can't see the layer. It's still there and you can bring it back later. It's just not an active layer at the moment. Now up top here, you'll notice where I pointed out, let me get my mouse, where I pointed out some of these were grayed out and some of them were not. So like this icon here, group and ungroup, it was grayed out. What group does is it attaches layers together on the canvas. So you can move them around on the canvas together. You can resize them together. You can even change the color together, but it is only in regards to the canvas. So when you're in your canvas mode and you want to move a shape around your canvas, you can group them together and then move one or more shapes together. Now at the bottom of the design panel are our action icons. And if you're in a tablet device, remember those, you want to click on the icon that says actions, and these different actions will pop up. So today in this class, we're going to talk about slice and weld and attach. Those are the 3 main icons we're going to focus on. 2 other icons are flatten and contour. Now, what is slice? So slice is an action that works with only 2 layers, and it divides those layers along the cut lines. So this square with the circle overlapped on top of it, where these 2 layers cut lines overlap, like the circle here overlaps into the square, and hidden behind the circle is where the square overlaps into the circle. If you slice, what it will do is actually cut those cut lines from one shape into the other shape. So I've got it as an image. So when I have these 2 layers selected and I select slice, what that does is it actually slices that circle shape out of the square shape and slices the square shape out of the circle shape. Now slice will only work with 2 layers. So if you have 3 layers selected and your slice icon isn't active, it's because you have too many layers selected. Slice will only work with 2 layers. Now they don't only have to be partially overlapping. When you have 2 layers completely overlapping, you can use slice like a cookie cutter. So in this example, I have the green star overlapping the yellow square. When I select both of those layers and I click on the slice icon, it cuts out a cookie cutter of the green star from the yellow background. So whenever your shapes are completely overlapping and you use slice, it cuts out the entire shape. When they're partially overlapping, it cuts out a partial shape. No matter which way you want to use slice, again, it works only with 2 shapes. Weld, which is our next action icon, is the complete opposite of slice. So where weld will bring images together on one layer, slice breaks apart those layers and those images. So what that means is when you use weld, you're working with images that are overlapping, are more than 2 or more images, and you want to permanently put them onto a single layer and turn 3 different objects into a single object. So here, now when I've welded those 3 hearts together, it's become one object in my layers panel. So let me go back so you can see how it started off with. I have these 3 objects here. Each one is its own unique layer. When I select all 3 layers, the weld icon is active and I can use the weld icon. You'll notice that the slice icon down here is not active, and that's because I have 3 layers selected. So when I select weld, it actually takes those 3 images and now places them on a single layer. They're welded together, so any overlapping cut lines have been removed, and this will now cut as one solid shape. So that's weld. So where slice takes things apart, weld marries them together. Weld also, when you weld that shape together and turn it into a single layer, you can now move that shape around as one layer. So where group just sort of would have held those 3 hearts together and you could have moved them around the canvas, weld welds those images together, and now you can still move them around the canvas, but you can't later break them apart. So the next icon is called attach. So attach holds your shapes together like group does, but the difference with attach is that it takes it beyond the canvas to your cutter. So you can edit your layers when they're attached. They'll change the color will change to be one color as if it's on one layer, but you can then go back and separate them later if you want to. So I have this example here on my screen with the coffee cup, the word junkie, and the word pumpkin. Once I've manipulated and moved those images around to be one single image, I could weld this, but then but once you've welded it together, it's married together and you can't later go back and take these pieces apart. So let's say that it's October, I'm a pumpkin junkie, but come, deeper into winter, I may be more of a mocha junkie. So I'll want to take out the pumpkin and replace it with mocha. By attaching these layers, they're going to stay together, but I can later change them around. So let me show you what would happen if I designed this image here if I designed this finished image here with my 3 individual layers, and I sent it over to my cutter before I attached. It would go over looking like this. So what happens between the software and your cutter? The software says, hey, let's be really smart and maximize the use of the vinyl or the material that the user's cutting out. So they will actually move the position of the images to go cut along the top and then down the side. And it disregards how you have them positioned on your canvas. If you want the software to communicate to the cutter, hey, this is exactly how I want this image to cut, you need to attach those layers together and then send it over to your cutter. So when you come back to your canvas, you would select these 3 layers, you would go down and click the attach icon and then send it over, and it would send over in your prepare screen like this. So it would hold that position of where you've placed those images in regard to each other. And so that's what attach does. Attach holds the position of multiple layers on the canvas to then communicate to your cutter how you want those layers to be cut. And you can go back, if you notice, you can go back. So these have already been attached. I can go back and detach. So down the line, when I'm ready to be that mocha junkie, I could come back, add the word mocha, hide pumpkin, replace it with mocha, reattach those, and send it over to my cutter. So let's just do a quick review, because it will take you a lot of uses to understand the difference between group, attach, and weld. And once you understand it, it's like, you'll hear that oh moment where everything makes sense to you. So, and really I encourage you to use it and play with it, and you'll understand, oh, I forgot to attach. Oh, I meant to weld those images together. So when you group layers together, you can group multiple layers together, images, text, shapes, it doesn't matter. And they move on the canvas together. But that's where it stops. It stops at the canvas layer. When you attach layers together, you're basically taking it that one next step from group, where group you've joined those layers together and you can move them around your canvas. With attach, you're saying, okay, now I want it to cut like this too. And then that last one is weld, where you're uniting two or more layers into a single layer, removing any cut lines between, and this action cannot be undone once you've saved your project. So I only weld when I know for sure this is what I want to do. Otherwise, I just group and attach until I know that I'm ready to weld it. Now, there are two more little action icons that we're going to talk about. One of them is contour. And contour is the erase tool for me. So it hides or unhides individual lines and shapes. So this is right here, inside each of the big shapes, like inside each of the cactuses or the pot here, you have these smaller shapes. So these crescent designs here, these are shapes that are created by cut lines. So when you want to hide a shape and hide a cut line, you can go to contour and hide these shapes. So when you click on contour, it pulls up another image that shows every single itty bitty down to like the 1/100th of an inch shape in your design. And what you would do is either you would click on the shape on the image here, or you would find that shape in the long list of shapes here, and you would click on those. When you've clicked on the shape, it hides it. So it's still there. You can always bring it back later, but it will hide that shape from your cutter. So when you then send it to the cut, you have a solid shape in the bottom, because I've hidden all of these crescent shapes in my original design. So sometimes in design space, you may see a design that you want to use, but you don't want to use the whole thing, or you want to just use a portion of it. You can use the contour to sort of erase out what you don't want to use. And then you cut what you do want to cut. Now the last icon, the fifth icon on the bottom, is called Flatten. And Flatten combines individual layers into a single layer that is ready to communicate with your printer, not your cutter, but a printer. And so you flatten all those layers into a single layer that is then ready to go and be sent to your printer to be printed and brought back, and then the outside cut out. So when you flatten a layer, so this body positive babe has these 5 different layers. And when those layers are flattened, then it turns into a single layer that is then ready for print, then cut. And then when you send it onto your printer and bring it back, it doesn't, as long as your image has been flattened, it won't go in and cut out each individual color. It will cut around the image to do that. Now, the other part of how do you know, like if you look here, it says print then cut in the layers panel. So once you've changed your basic cut function, how do you know what you've changed it to or what that image will do? Well, that uses the cut and draw lines on the layers panel. So this Get Crafty here has a basic cut indicated. So it would just use your fine point blade and it would cut that out. But what if you wanted to change that cut line in your design? Well, the first step is to know which machine you're selected. So in this example here, I have the Explorer selected. And the different cut or draw lines that are available on the Explorer show up in this operations panel on the edit. So if you're in a tablet, I think it may say operations or edit. I'm not sure which one that's in, but it'll be along the bottom of your canvas. And what you do is as you select a different design type of line, it will change that line in your layers panel. So sometimes if you bring in an image and it's a draw image, not a cut image, it would say, well, I'm a draw image, and then you can change it to a basic cut image or use a foil marker or a pen. So if you wanted to draw this image, you would then change your operation to a draw operation from a basic cut operation, and then it would draw the outside edge of this image. Now, depending on what type of draw tool you're using, it will tell you the color or the size. So for example, if you've selected foil, it will tell you, you can say, I want to use the fine tip, the medium tip, or the bold tip on the foil and foil the edge of this design. If you're using a maker, you have a few more options. So where your Explorer has the basic cut line, because that's the tool it uses, with a maker, you can add the wavy tool or perforation tool to your cut options, or the deboss and engrave tool on your draw options here. And so so depending on which machine you've selected, you'll see that you have the different functionality, what operations, what cut or draw lines you can do. And then you can also, up here in the operations, change the color of your design. So I use this now, like the colors actually, like if you're using vinyl or iron-on, the colors are determined by the type of material you actually put on your mat. But sometimes I like to change the color up just for my visual. I like to see how is it going to look when I make it. So I will change up my color sometimes. So then the last part of your layers panel is how to work with text in your layers panel. So when you go to your design panel here and you want to insert text onto your canvas, you type in your, you select text, you type in your text, and your text edit bar pops up. Now, in your text edit bar, you can change the style of what style you'll be using of that font. So are you going to keep it as a cut font or a writing font? You have some options there. Not every font has all of the different options. So you may have some fonts that are not intended for writing, and so it wouldn't have a writing option. You may have a font that's not intended for an italic, so you wouldn't have the italic option either. So it just depends on the font you select and what types of styles are available on that font. If you look down here, it will tell you, like, the Cricut Sans is a single layer cutting and writing font. So I knew if I picked Cricut Sans, it would have a writing font and a cutting font. Now up at the top, when you're searching for fonts, a couple of things to keep in mind. You have system fonts, which are the fonts that you've loaded onto your PC or your laptop that are part of, like if you have Windows, you have fonts that are associated with that. And some of those fonts you can use in the Cricut and cut out those fonts. Now, Cricut does have over 500 fonts for you to use, so there's quite a bit in the Cricut Access with the fonts you can use. If you're on a desktop or laptop, you have the option to search for kerned fonts. Kerning is the distance between the letters when you're writing. So a kerned font is usually a script font, and it basically takes out the space between the letters so that it looks like it looks like it was drawn with a script or cursive. Each letter is still an individual letter. So each letter is still its own unique letter and would cut out individually. You can separate them, you can move them together, and it would cut those out individually. But that's where the tools that we've already gone over come into hand. When you have these individual letters and you want to make it so that it's one word, you would select these individual letters and then use the Weld icon, and it removes those cut lines and takes those letters AIS and turns those into one continuous cut. So that's where you'll use the Weld frequently on your, sorry about that. You'll use the Weld frequently on fonts as you get started with Weld, and then you'll start making shapes using Weld and the shapes icons and things like that. So, but I do use, as a beginner, I know when I started, I was using Weld quite regularly on my fonts. All right, and I see that you guys have asked some questions. That is awesome. So that's the end of the presentation portion of Design Space. And I know it goes a little bit quickly, but it's intended to kind of point out the different sections of Design Space and what is in each section. So now if you're ready to go with me into Design Space, go ahead and open up your Design Space and navigate to a fresh canvas. I'm going to open up mine along with you. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to share this one. Now, you'll notice that I do have, this is what we'll be making, this Hello Pumpkin. And when I'm going to show you, I'm going to start off on my home screen. So when you go to your home screen, whether you're on a laptop or a desktop, when you go to your home screen, you'll have your carousel up here. Your projects are all saved here that you've saved, the video playlist, and then some seasonal projects and things like that. And then you'll also scroll down to the community projects. So if everyone could go to their home screen and go ahead and navigate down to the community of projects. And what we're going to do there is we're going to go across that line all the way to the right side. And I want you to search for me as a community member. So if you type in my name, it's spelled Kesley, Anderson, Anderson, type that into the search box, and this image with my face will pop up. So go ahead and click on that. And you'll notice that I have my project right here is saved for you. Now, if for any reason you're having trouble getting to my profile or finding the project, don't worry. This is actually what we're going to be building today. And I'm showing it to you now so that you can bring it onto your canvas and sort of tuck it up in the corner so you know where we're going. So once you've gotten to the project, you want to go ahead and click on the project, and it will open up a secondary screen here. It shows you what images we're working with, and then you can choose to customize it or just make it just like I have it. What I'd like you to do is customize. And what that will do is that will bring in that image onto your canvas. And mine's just thinking for a minute, and here it is right here. So you can see in my layers panel over on the side here, all the different layers that we've worked with to get to this point. Oops, I'm gonna attach that all together or group it. Let's group that all together. And I'm gonna put this over in the corner. So you can still see it, but it's just tucked away. This is what we're going to. And again, if you didn't get my profile or anything like that, don't worry about it. We can either go back and help you find it, but we're going to be making this, so you don't have to have this to do what we're going to finish our completed project for the day. Okay, so what I'd like you to do is, now that we're on the canvas, the first step we're going to do is make our square frame. And I'm not don't worry too much about it. If you have your blank next to you and you want to measure the size of the space you're going to be putting it on, you can do that. But we're just going to go ahead and design it in the 4.5 by 3.5 size here. And then you can always make it bigger or make it smaller, depending on what you plan to put it on. So the first step is we're going to bring in a 4.5 by 3.5 shape, and we're going to get a rectangle. So I'm going to go to the design panel here, and I'm going to click on shapes. And you'll notice I don't have a specific rectangle. I have to start with the square shape. So go ahead and grab the square shape and bring it onto your canvas. And it comes on as a gray shape like this, and it's proportional locked. So my proportion lock is on. So when I pull it out and I change the width, the height also changes with that. But since we want to make this a rectangle, we want to unlock the proportions. So unlock your proportions in your edit bar. That's that little lock up there by the size, or you can unlock on the left of the image itself. And change your width to 4.5 and change your height to 3.5. And that will give you a nice little rectangle to work with. Okay, Margaret, change up how you're searching for my name. It's Kesley, Anderson. So you've got those two letters flipped around. Okay, so now that you've got your first rectangle on your canvas, we're going to need to bring in a second rectangle. So again, we're going to go over to our design panel. We're going to click on the shapes. We're going to select a square. And we're going to unlock the proportion. And we're going to change our width and our height again. Now, with this one, we're going to make it a little bit smaller so it'll fit inside of our first rectangle. So for this one, we're going to make it 4.25 by 3.25. And that will give us 1/4 of an inch around the edge of the rectangle. So I'm going to give everybody just a second or two to catch up. Bring in your two rectangles. Your first one should be 4.5 by 3.5. And your second one is 4.25 by 3.25. And I'm going to change my color so that you can see my next step, but you do not have to change your color. So don't worry about changing your color right now. I just changed mine so you can see my next step. Okay, so for the next step, what we want to do is we need to create this frame. So we're going to align these two shapes, and we're going to align them by the center. So since I want to work with both shapes at the same time, I'm going to select both shapes, and I just, on my desktop or laptop, I click on the canvas and then I drag my mouse across those shapes, and that selects both shapes. Then I'm going to go to the edit bar and select align and center. And that puts those two shapes, one right on top of the other. So let me go back and show you that again. I'm going to undo. Oops, we turn that a nice little orange color. So you can see too in my layers panel, it is helpful to change the colors. Like if you're working with things that if you've duplicated it or you're working with images that are similar in shape, sometimes it is easier to have those colors changed. So you can identify them pretty easily in your layers panel. Oops. All right. Now, what we're going to do next is I'm going to show you again how to align that by center. So I select both layers. I go up to my edit bar and I say align center, and that puts it right in the crosshairs right in the center of those two designs. Now, because I have two designs selected, I can go ahead and select slice. And what I'm going to do is like a cookie cutter out this brighter orange color on the yellow. So go ahead and select slice. And now once you've selected slice, you'll notice that what started off as 2 layers have now become 3 layers. And this layer here, the frame, is the layer we want to keep. And these 2 layers we don't need, so we can throw those away. So we'll select those 2 layers by clicking outside on the canvas, scrolling across, and you can delete on your keyboard using delete, or you can go to your layers panel up here and select delete and remove that layer from there. Now, while you guys are catching up and making your frame, I'm going to show you, if you're on a desktop, another way to do this. So if you have a rectangle on your canvas and you're working on a desktop or laptop, this is not available on your tablet yet. When you've selected an image, you can go to your edit bar up here and use something called offset. And what that does is it adds a border on the outside of your shape, or if you go to the negative side, it would add the border to the inside of your shape. So I have a 1/2 inch border here on my design, or 1/4 of an inch all the way around on my design. And I can change the size of that and make it bigger or smaller and click apply. And now I have, instead of making 2 squares, 2 rectangles, and changing the dimensions, I can just do it just like that on the software will do the work for me. So that's offset on a desktop or laptop. But it's really good to know also how to kind of do the same thing using slice with shapes. Okay, so now hopefully everyone's got your frame and you're all ready to go to the next step. The next step is to find our images. So go to your design panel on the left, select images, and we're going to go to all images and select free this week. Now in the free this week, what we want to select is "Oh, hello." And this will be our phrase right here, "Oh, hello." And if you can't find it by that way, you can just do a search for the image number. And when you do a search for the image number, definitely you want to make sure that you have the hashtag before that image number. So it's the, it's the hashtag M2D, that number, to find that image. So we're going to select that image, put the green little box around it and put it in the queue. And then we're going to go back to free this week and we are going to find the pumpkin. So, oh, sorry, I did that wrong. Okay, so now we're going to go back into free this week and search for pumpkin. Now, if you have Cricut access, you may have other pumpkin images available to you that you want to use. Don't have to use the one I'm using. This one's free, so I know we can all use this one and make this, create this together. So we're going to go ahead and select this pumpkin, and I see Lindsay put both the pumpkin and hello in the chat. If you're having any trouble finding it, just highlight, copy, and paste. Okay, so now that we've got that in here, we're going to add that to our canvas, and we'll have both images now on our canvas. And you see they come into your canvas together. So we're going to click off that shape, unselect it, and move them around. So now you can see in your layers panel, they're 2 separate layers. Now the hello, in this design, I just used the hello. I didn't use the O. So in the layers panel, on the hello, you can hide the O like that. And now you just have hello. And you can just, by selecting it, we'll use the quick edit size tool here, and we'll just reduce that in size so that it will fit in our frame. Now, if you remember, our frame was 4.5 inches. So a quick cheat on that is select the hello and change your width to 4.5 inches, and it will be the exact same width as your rectangle. And you can just slide that right onto your rectangle. Now, I do like to have the top touching and the sides touching. So it can be a little tricky to kind of position that right in the center. So again, we can just take both layers, the hello and the rectangle layer, select both of those layers and align the center vertically. And oops, that does the up and down, center horizontal. I always get those mixed up. So there now, my hello is right in the center of the rectangle. And then I can just select it and move it up and down however you want. So I do like to have it touching a smidgy bit on the top there. So I'll just make sure that's touching. And then if you've bumped it over in trying to get it to touch, you can just go back and select both layers, align, center, horizontal. And that aligns the horizontal center there. Okay, so then I'm going to choose both of those layers and we will weld those together. And you'll notice that now the hello has become the same color as the outside because those will be cut from the same vinyl. And the last little bit, we want to take our pumpkin and bring that guy in. And you can just change him up. If you want to make him a taller pumpkin, you can certainly do that by unlocking your proportions and just dragging your pumpkin a little bit bigger. Now, you'll notice when I'm trying to grab my pumpkin, I keep getting the oh, hello. And that's because that's my top layer. So I'm having a little bit of a trouble, you'll notice, grabbing that pumpkin. You're like, I just want to hold on to that pumpkin, but I keep getting the oh, hello. So over in your layers panel, you can drag the hello down below the pumpkin. Now the pumpkin is your top layer and it's a little bit easier to grab that guy. Okay, so we'll just resize him in. He's about 1.5 inches. And again, touching on the top and the bottom if you want, or maybe just on the top like that, on the side like that. So he's a little bit smaller this time than he was there. And go ahead and select both of those layers to weld them together again. And now we've got that. So our last part is to add in the pumpkin. So when you want to add text, you go to your design panel, you select text, and we're going to type in pumpkin. Now you can, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. As you are doing this part, can you answer Sarah's question where she wanted to know how to have 2 lines of text and then just show how to do a curve?
Sure. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. So this is the Cricut Sans font, which is a fun, good basic font to use. If you want to use a cursive font, let's go to the font and select. Now, if you're on a tablet device, remember you won't have the kerning feature, but go ahead and do a font called Radiotopia. And this will come in if you're on a desktop or laptop. This one will come in already kerned, and all the letters will be next to each other like this. Now I'm going to change my color so you can see my color there, and you can see those cut lines between the letters. So there's all these cut lines here, and I would just have those letters selected, and you could weld them together and make them so that it's all one word like that. And then you can change your size of this. If you want to make it skinnier, you can do that. Smaller, you can really make it fit in there just perfectly. And there's no right or wrong to this. It's just really what you feel comfortable with and what you like, how the look that you like of something. That's all there is to it. So I'm going to go in a little bit more like that. Okay, so while you guys are playing around getting the font that you like, that Radiotopia is a free font. So you should have no problem cutting through on that. Let me show you another, I'm going to walk you through a couple font things. So if you're on a desktop or laptop, if you're on a tablet device and your letters are not coming in kerned, they're coming in separated, a font like Quirky is a good one to show this. So if they're coming in separated like this, so they come onto your canvas, each letter separated, all you need to do is change the letter spacing and keep bringing the letters together. So I'll go with like a -0.5 and see if how that brings them together. So now they're together, and if I change my color, you'll see it still has the same cut lines, and you still need to do that kerning. Now, if I wanted to add a second letter, let's say I wanted to do this whole thing as Hello Pumpkin in the same font, like this, I could have my letters in two different shapes like this. And then I could change my line spacing. So move those closer together if I wanted to. And then you could center your letters, your words, one on top of the other. And so then to answer the question about how to curve them, you need to go to Advanced, Ungroup to Lines, and then take each line and curve each line how you'd like it to be curved. So if you want it curved at 10 points, maybe a little bit less is better. Let's do 5. Oops. Going the wrong direction here. Let's give it just a little curve there. And then I would do the same thing here and curve this one just a little bit like this. And then you can just play with those around, move your letter spacing so that your letters are a little bit closer as you go. And then they'll still have, each one is still an individual letter. So you still need to weld that together. But that is how you would curve to answer the question, how to curve 2 different lines. You need to separate them each into their own line, and then you can curve them that way. So I hope that answers that question. Okay, so back to our design. So we have our outline with the hello and the pumpkin. And if you want to just see how that's going to cut out for you, you can change the colors as you go along. I used for the pumpkin here, I used one called Radiotopia, and Quirky was the one that I used that was cut apart. There are so many fonts. It's so fun to play with them and get, like, you know, the font combinations that you use, but you'll find as a beginner, you'll find there's certain ones you're like, oh, I always like to use this font. And then as you get more advanced, you'll really stretch out and broaden your horizons and do a lot more of the different fonts that you can do. Okay, so now we've got our design, and mine is sized at 4.5 by 3.5. You can resize it if you need to. Just go up here to your width and your height and change it for whatever product you're putting it on. If you want to put it on a mug, or if you want to put it, I'll be using a notebook. And so I'm going to keep it at the 4.5 by 3.5 size, and I'm ready to make it. So then I just click on Make It, and it will go to my prepare screen, and I get my, I'll be cutting on a mat, and I get my orange cut here and then my yellow cut here. Now this is a super cool trick that you may not have tried yet. Instead of having to put both mats through twice, I can actually move my pumpkin onto my first mat and cut them once. Now I only do this if I'm cutting with the same material. So you select Move Object. I'll be moving that to my orange mat. And there it is right there. So now I pop that over here. So I will place my yellow vinyl right here, and I'll place my orange vinyl right here. But because I'm using the same type of vinyl, I'll cut it through that way. And then let's say you wanted to make this for every little trick-or-treater, so you would be doing a lot of cutting. Just go to Project Copies and make 2 of the same project and say Apply. This will undo your hide. Let's try this. Let's see what happens here. I'm not sure. Oh, there we go. Oh, move my yellow back to my yellow canvas there. But you can, so if you're making something and you want to cut a lot of it, you can just multiply it on the canvas itself. And you don't have to do that, on your canvas and attach them and cut and duplicate and all that kind of stuff. It does the magical work for you. And then you can, manipulate them around if you need to, or if you change your mind, you can just hide it and say, nope, I didn't want to cut that one. I'm only cutting one today. So I'm going to take my pumpkin and we're going to move that object back onto our first canvas here. Move that over to my 6-inch line. I always use that middle 6-inch line as my guide when I'm using multiple colors of vinyl on one cutting mat. So I know, like, okay, place it here and it won't get cut incorrectly. Now I'm just going to go ahead and continue. And this is where, you select your materials that you're working with. I'll be using an orange and a yellow permanent vinyl. Oops, my machine's not on. That would help. I'll be using an orange and a permanent, orange and yellow permanent vinyl today on my cutting mat. I'll be cutting with the Explore 3. So I could do smart vinyl, but I'm just going to use premium vinyl on the mat with the fine point blade, and my light is flashing telling me it's ready to go. So I'm going to go ahead and I will move to my overhead camera and let you guys see how things cut. Oh, you can see my goofy picture. There we go. All right. So keep those questions coming. You guys are doing a great job getting all your questions answered. So it really is super, it's really good to see how many questions you have. And that is like a benefit, I think, of taking one of our classes, is that we actually, you get to ask a question live and we'll do our best to answer it for you. So I have my orange and my yellow, and I'm going to set my cutting mat aside so I can go ahead and cut this. Now my yellow, I just need a little piece of that. So I'll just cut a little strip. I think that was about, I'll cut this about 3 inches and by 2 inches. I should have looked before I went off my screen. So, just to make sure, I'm going to cut a little bit bigger. So I'll cut 4 inches there. Now, my paper trimmer is by far my favorite tool I use. I keep it right by my machine and I use it all the time. And then my orange, I'm going to cut into a 6x6 piece. So he's going to go right here. And you might as well, if you go ahead and cut out your transfer sheet too, and then you'll be ready to go. So I'll be using, since I'm using just glossy vinyl, I just need a single piece of regular transfer tape, and I'll make that one 6 inches by 6 inches as well. Now I usually do cut it over a little bit, my vinyl, so I cut it bigger than my finished image. So while my finished image is going to be 4.5 by 3.5, actually I'm going to trim this down a little bit. I'll cut my transfer paper a little bit bigger so that I have room to keep my transfer bigger than my actual design is. That makes sense. You'll see when we get there. Okay, so let me bring my mat back. And my first piece is the border, the frame. So it's going to go here. Oh, hello. And then I'll put the pumpkin right here. Now, don't forget, this class is being recorded. It'll be on Michael's YouTube channel. So if you are just following along today and you want to make it at a different point, you absolutely can do that. Right. Now I'm using the standard grip mat with my vinyl. So you can use the standard grip mat with vinyl, or the light grip mat works nicely with vinyl. I tend to use the blue light grip mat when I am working with paper mostly, because it has less stick to it. So it doesn't hold onto my paper like some of the other mats might. And then there's the pink fabric mat I use with my maker when I'm cutting out fabric. And then the strong grip mat, which is great if you're working with acrylic or leather or something that you really need to get that hold on it. Now, my book today is the Artist Loft's Journal, and these are fabulous. If you ever need a gift, teacher gift, I mean, Christmas present, any kind of gifts, I love to make a custom personalized journal. They're great if you're doing a vacation. Like this was a fun one, Life is Better on the beach. This was a fun vacation one that we used. Leah, that is such a good question. How do you clean your mats? I use a lint-free wipe that's also alcohol-free, and I wipe my mats down after I use them to keep them clean. I put once it's dried, I put my plastic cover right back on it so that it doesn't get any dust or dog hair or anything like that on there. I also clean my mats. You can use Dawn dish detergent in the sink with a circular motion of your using a circular motion with like a soft brush. But I do tend to keep my covers close and handy so that when I'm done cutting, I can put those back on and tuck that away. Now, I don't know, I didn't talk about it, but I do pull my vinyl. I turn my mat over and pull my vinyl from my mat and not, well, really, I pull my mat off of my vinyl and not my vinyl from my mat. And the reason I do that is just to keep from stretching or moving the vinyl in any way. So that's how I do that. So then we're just going to weed this out, and I'm using my Cricut weeding tool, and I'm just pulling up the parts of the design that we won't be using. I have a handy dandy lint brush right here that I use to put my my pieces on here that I don't need. Now, depending on how you like to do it, there's so many different ways that you can layer multiple colors of vinyl. Some people like to do it in one step and have the layered vinyl on their backing as they go. Some people like to put a bit of it, like put one piece onto their blank and then add the second color, third color, fourth color. Since these are not laying on top of each other, they're more laying up with each other. I'm going to pull out my light box and show you how I use that to line up my vinyl. So I don't know if you noticed on the back of your vinyl that you have this grid line on the back of your vinyl. And when you use the bright pad, those lines will show up. So this is the bright pad. I can turn it down a little bit. And so when I put this down, I can see the lines on the paper in the background of it. Now, my transfer tape is bigger than my design is here. So one thing I can do, I can cut around this and line this up on here so that it would it would be right on the mat at one altogether. That makes sense. I don't know if that makes sense, if I'm saying that right. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just use some Scotch tape here and tape my design kind of together on my bright pad. And you can do this on a window, during the day. You'll have some sunlight coming in through your windows that you can use, and that will give you the design. You can see everything coming through. So I'm just going to line up my design here, and my word pumpkin is going to go right here. And then my hello is going to go above it. My hello pumpkin is going to go above it right here. Let's do it this way on the bottom. Okay, so now I've got my two pieces lined up. My grids are lined up, so I know everything is in a good position. And I'm going to take my transfer tape and fold back just the top half along the grid line here. Now, again, everybody has different ways of doing this. You will figure out a way that makes you, works for you and makes sense for you and makes you happy and gives you crafting peace. This happens to work for me. So I fold that back like this, and I'm going to line up this edge with the top edge of my piece and create a hinge. So when I put this down, lining up those top pieces, I've created like a hinge. So now I can take apart my design. So I can pull this up, I can pull this back, and I can pull this back. Get that back in spot. Okay, sorry about that. That one popped off for me. And then I'll just pop this back. And of course that one came off. Okay, so now I'm gonna put my, I'm gonna put the pumpkin on first. And it's gonna be tricky because you don't want it to get too stuck on the bright pad, but you want it to stick onto the transfer tape. So we're just gonna burnish it with the disc here. We're gonna pull this up this way, and then we're gonna come from the back and take the backing off. And you want to make sure that your little dot on your eye stays. And then you're just going to line up your hello onto your pumpkin here. I may have wiggled my my pumpkin design around a little bit, so I'm going to pop that up there. You know, the good thing is it doesn't always go as planned. Being able to have the patience to just go, okay, plan A didn't work, let me switch over to plan B, is always a good thing as a crafter to have. But so now I've got them lined up on one piece of transfer tape, and I'm just going to pull that off. And we'll turn this over from the back. And again, just start walking our vinyl backing off of our transfer tape here. And it's a bit of a rock and roll. So I just go kind of from corner to corner and roll that off like this. So Jen, this is the Cricut bright pad, and I believe they're on michaels.com or your store, your local store. It's great because it is wireless, so you just charge it up and then you can give it a good go whenever you're ready. You can move it around the house so you're not stuck to a wall or something like that. You can even use it in the car if you needed to craft in the car on a trip. Okay, so we put that down. Again, I'm going to use my wedge, and we will just pull this transfer tape right off. And see how nicely that sticks down. Oop, there we go. Hello, pumpkin. How does that look, guys?
So cute, Kesley. That looks so lovely.
I love those little notebooks. I can't have enough of those around my house.
Thank you so much for teaching such an amazing class for Cricut today. You really open up everybody's eyes to all the opportunities of what you can do in Design Space using all those actions. Everybody remember that we have other classes available at Michael's. Just visit the same way you signed up for this class. Kesley is going to be offering some really good project classes as we go through the fall. So be sure and check them out. And Kesley, you're getting lots of kudos. Thank you. Thank yous. We really appreciate your help. I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Joy and Lindsay, for answering so many questions. You guys are great.